जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम स्टूडेंट्स। आई होप आप सबको मेरी आवाज़ आ रही है लाउड एंड क्लियर। ठीक है, वी बिगिन the lecture today and we continue the same topic that we were doing last time about DC machines. Just let me open the book. Yeah, I hope अब तक आपने क्विज 3 आप जमा करा चुके हैं. You have also submitted assignment 3 and the complex engineering problem. I think which has due date yesterday or today. So over the weekend, I will try my best to check your uh, these pending submissions of quiz and assignments. और जिन लोगों का बाकी मार्क्स के इशू थे वो सब रिजॉल्व हो चुके हैं. जिसके रिजॉल्व मैंने नहीं किए उसमें मैंने रीजन बता दिए. आइदर द सबमिशन वाज वेरी लेट या स्टूडेंट कुड नॉट गिव प्रूफ कि उसने जमा कराया है. बस उसने कहा कि फलाने बच्चे के मार्क्स रिवाइज हुए हैं तो मैं भी ट्राई मार लूं. ठीक है, तो आई कुडंट गेट क्रेडिबल एविडेंस फ्रॉम अदर्स जिन्होंने टाइमली सबमिट किया. जिन्होंने किया था उनके मैंने आई हैव अपडेटेड देयर मार्क्स. So we continue the last topic of CLO4 of this course, and we were doing the separately excited or DC shunt motors, and we saw that uh, their uh, derivations were same. So if we were studying about shunt DC motors, the same logic was applied to separately excited DC motors. Okay, so we are now on page. We also studied the simple construction of the machines, the role of commutator and brushes and stuff. Okay, so we were now doing this thing. Let me share this with you. Share screen. Share screen. Okay, so I flashed the book with in front of you. I hope you can all see it. So we saw that there are 5 constructions of the DC machines. These are the constructions for the DC motors, but the same machine can also work as a generator. If instead of giving electrical power, we start giving it mechanical power and start extracting electrical output, then it becomes a generator. So the construction of the machine is the same, only the direction of the power flow is reversed. Okay, so we saw there are 5 types. Uh, in our course, we will be interested in separately excited DC motor generators, the shunt DC motor generator, the series DC motor generator, while we are just going to look at what a compounded DC motor is, but we will not do that in detail because of very limited time left. The exams are beginning from 5th of December, and we are already almost quarter of the way through the CLO4, which is the last CLO of this course. Okay, the remaining 3 CLOs we have completed, and we have also uh, given enough assignments and quizzes on those topics. The complex engineering problem was also from CLO number 3. Okay, so we saw that uh, the equivalent circuit of a DC machine, as shown in the diagram here, it is similar to what we did in the AC machines, but the difference is that in the synchronous machines, the field side was DC and the armature side was AC, almost in both the synchronous machines, synchronous generator and the synchronous motor. And we couldn't join the two sides together because of this disparity. In the induction motor and in the transformer, since the primary and the secondary side, and in the case of the induction motor, the rotor side and the stator side, they were both having AC voltages and currents induced in them. So we could join the two sides into one equivalent side and do the circuit analysis easily, because we know that the induction motor also behaves like a transformer with some effective turns ratio A effective And just like the transformer, if both sides are AC, then we can convert all the impedances on one side to the other by multiplying by the square of the turns ratio or dividing by the square of the turns ratio. Over here, we see that both the armature side and the field side are both activated by DC voltages and currents. So we cannot apply that same logic, and we have to keep the two sides separate for analysis, especially in the case of separately excited. In the case of shunt DC machines, the two sides are already lumped together. So this circuit is for separately excited machines, and the field circuit has some DC voltage applied to it, are adjustable to adjust the field, and the armature side has some current which is drawn from the supply because it is a motor, not a generator. Sometimes the brushes voltages are inclusive, sometimes we exclude them, they are negligible. It is just like a drop, extra drop on the brushes. And the armature induced EMF, because of the rotation of the armature inside the field, causes flux change, rate of change of flux. So it has some induced voltage in the armature, just like in the synchronous machines, which is opposing the applied voltage. That is why the plus sign is opposing the plus sign of the supply. Okay, so we have already done this. Now the two governing equations for DC machines is the armature induced EMF is proportional to the rate of change of flux. And the rate of change of flux is proportional to the magnetic flux times the rate of rotation of the armature. So, okay, on the DC machines, we are saying that the field is fixed on the stator and the armature is rotating. Okay, so this is true for both the motor and the generator. And then there is also uh, torque induced. Okay, so this armature EMF, induced armature EMF, will be an effect which will be present in both the DC motor and the DC generator. But in the DC generator, this is the primary voltage induced, which will supply to the load. In the DC motor, this is a secondary effect. Okay, because we have supplied the electrical energy and we wanted to do mechanical work, and this is just a byproduct in the machine, that due to the rotation of the armature in the field, there is some EMF induced in it, and which opposes the primary applied EMF. Okay, so in the motor this is a secondary effect, in the generator this is going to be the primary effect. And the induced torque equation for the DC machine, in this case we are studying a motor, is also proportional to the flux, but instead of the speed over here, we have a armature current, because we know that in the torque we basically consider the effect of a force on a conductor, force experienced by a conductor when it is placed inside a magnetic field, and that force basically causes a torque, because the armature uh, is rotating around some axle, and the force on the armature wire or the coil, it causes some turning effect. That force causes a turning effect about the axle of the machine, as we saw in the previous class. These are the two governing equations, and we must learn them by heart, because all the other mathematical analysis the uh, involves these two effects in the DC machine. Okay, so now we already had done this, that we can have a magnetization curve of ferromagnetic material like this, where when we apply the MMF, uh, there's a proportional change in the flux, just like when there is a keeping the resistance constant, we increase the EMF in a circuit, so the current will increase proportionally. The constant of proportionality is the resistance related to the gradient of the graph, and over here the gradient of the graph is related to the reluctance, or rather the inverse of the reluctance, because we have the flux on the y-axis and the MMF magnetomotive force on the x-axis. So the gradient of this line in this linear portion is equal to the inverse of the reluctance, just like the ohmic law. And after some time, we see that even if we keep on increasing the MMF, there's no proportional change in the flux. The line doesn't go this way, and it turns away and it tries, it almost becomes steady or constant. So that means that all the magnetic materials have a property that up to some extent they can become magnetized, but after that we cannot increase their magnetization, and it almost becomes steady even though we keep on applying more and more magnetomotive force. Okay, so if we see the corresponding graph of field current, which is causing the flux, times the EA, and we keep the omega m constant, and we know that, just let me scribble it for you here. So we had already seen that EA is proportional to K phi omega m. So if we keep this one as constant and just say that EA is proportional to phi, okay, keeping this omega constant, then with a proportional increase in phi, EA should also increase. We also see the same effect here in this linear part of the curve, that as flux is increasing, because flux is a function of IF. Flux is a function of the field current supplied. So as I increase the flux or I increase IF, there's a proportional change in EA. But after some time, even if I keep on increasing the flux, then EA also becomes less linear and almost turns towards a constant value, provided that the uh, this omega is constant. And this is due to the fact that at some point in time, phi will become constant, as we saw in the last graph, that up to some extent we can increase phi, because this will have the same effect as increasing the magnetomotive force, and after a while then we cannot increase the further flux because of the same effect as studied before. Okay, so we were discussing about separately excited and the DC shunt motors, and we saw that their analysis is the same. So if we are studying from the analysis for one machine, for example, for shunt DC motors, then the uh, same will stand for the separately excited DC machines. We do not have to drive an expression for this. And the primary equations for the DC machines are very simple as compared to the synchronous machines. And they are mostly governed by all just the Ohmic law and the Kirchhoff voltage law and the Kirchhoff current law. So over here, the first equation is that the terminal voltage is equal to armature induced EMF plus IA and RA. And why is that? Why this relationship holds? Because if we see the armature side of both the machines separately excited or shunt motors, so the armature EMF is basically always opposing the supply EMF. So if the supply EMF is like this, then the armature EMF is opposing this. And the only drops in the armature other than this armature induced EMF is due to the resistance of the armature RA. So if we write the Kirchhoff voltage law equation for this, then supplied EMF is equal to drops. So the first drop is on the IARA, which is the armature resistance, and the second drop is EA because it is opposing the terminal voltage. So for all practical purposes, this is the main equation, and it comes from simply the Kirchhoff voltage law. Similar equations we were dealing with in the synchronous machines. So this is very much similar to the equation of a synchronous motor. And in the synchronous motor also, the applied voltage was equal to the sum of the armature drops plus the armature induced EMF, which was opposing the supply EMF. But the only problem in the synchronous machines was that all of these quantities were vectors. So these were not simple numbers, but they were complex numbers. They were also having a phase part and a magnitude part, and due to which we could also draw the phasor diagram for this. But over here, things are very simple. This is just a linear equation, and it can be solved much more easily than going into the complex algebra. Okay. Then we see another circuit. This is for a separately excited machine. So the field part and the armature part are shown separately. And the field part is just another DC circuit. where RF and LF are the resistance and inductance of the field circuits. R adjustable is used to adjust the field. We will see what effects the adjustment of the field can bring in the performance of the DC motor. And this is the armature side as we studied last time. There are some terminologies in the book. Sometimes armature current is also referred to as the load current. So sometimes you can also see IL written instead of IA, because in the motor, the load is mechanical, and the electrical depiction is that the more mechanical load you put on the machine, the more current it will draw from the supply. So this current is sometimes referred to as the I load. Okay, so for this one, the IF will simply be equal to VF over the combined resistance R adjustable and RF, but sometimes they are just lumped together and just called RF. So this is the first equation. The second equation we have already done on last page, and IL is equal to IA, as I just told. Now, this is an example of a shunt DC machine. The difference in the separately excited and the shunt is that in the separately excited, two DC sources are used, one to excite the armature, one to excite the field. This one, only one DC source is used, and the field circuit and the armature circuit are attached in parallel. Okay, so if the VT was to be fixed in this diagram and RF and R adjustable were to be fixed in this diagram, then IF would have been constant. But this IA part of IL, now note IL is a sum of the two currents. So this is the difference between the previous case and this case. That load current is now the sum of the armature current and the field current. And if the field current is constant, provided VT is constant and this RF or adjustable is constant, then load current will depend on the fluctuations in the armature current, and how the armature current would vary because of the difference in the rotating speed of the motor. This EA would vary, and this EA would have a direct impact on IA, because IA is equal to the difference of VT minus EA divided by RA. So if EA is varying due to the different rotational speed of the motors, then this EA will have a direct effect on IA, and it would have some effect on the load current drawn from the by the motor. Okay, so we had already done this, and now what we want to see is terminal characteristic of the DC shunt motor. Uh, So in order to study this, we are basically going to uh, see the load speed characteristics of the motor. And if we do the characteristic for the DC shunt motor, it is valid for a separately excited DC motor too. How we can drive the terminal characteristic of a motor, in which we want to plot the two output quantities versus each other. One is the output torque, one is the speed. So how does the torque of the motor is changing with the changing speeds of the motor? So in order to drive this equation, we basically look at the equations. Okay, we already know this equation. This is true for a shunt machine, that VT, the terminal voltage, is equal to VT minus IA is equal to IARA, or VT is the sum of EA plus IARA, which is the armature's loop, which is the outer loop of this machine. So if we are considering this outer loop and apply the Kirchhoff voltage law on this outer loop, even then this equation is valid. So what next? After I write this equation, I can relate some of the quantities with the flux and with the torque. How I can do that? And the rotational speed of the motor. This is a universal equation for all the DC machines, that the armature induced EMF is a function of the rate of change of flux, because we know this by Faraday's law, that this is equal to minus d phi by dt, where the minus sign is coming due to the Lenz's law. So I can substitute EA by this expression. So what I do is I just substitute EA by its equivalent expression here. So I can relate it with the mechanical quantity of the motor and the flux, which is phi and omega m. And now I also note the second governing equation of the DC machines is the torque induced is a function of the flux and the current in the armature, because we already know that the force experienced by a conductor in a magnetic field is a function of the strength of the magnetic field and a function of the current in the conductor, and both will contribute directly to the force on the conductor. Force is also causing the torque. So the torque is also proportional to the flux of the machine, and it is also proportional to the current in the armature. So I can make IA the subject here, and I get the resulting expression that IA is equal to tau induced over K phi. So I substitute the second gadget in place of IA here, and I land with this expression that the terminal voltage of a machine is equal to K into phi times omega m plus torque induced into Ra divided by K phi. Now in this, what quantities are varying and what quantities are constant? We wanted to plot a graph of torque versus the speed characteristics. So I'm chiefly interested in these two quantities, which are obviously variable. And this K is obviously a constant. This is on the depending on the construction of the machine. This K is also constant as this is dependent on the construction of the machine. Ra is constant as it is also dependent on the construction of the machine. So we can drive the characteristics, how torque varies with respect to the flux of the machine and how the speed varies with respect to the flux of the machine. So we make omega m the subject here. So what we are basically doing is we want to have omega m on the y-axis of the graph and torque induced on the x-axis of the graph. So we make this part as the subject of the equation. We bring it on this side. K phi omega m is equal to K phi omega m is equal to Vt minus torque induced into Ra over K phi. Okay, then we make omega m as the subject of the machine. So we divide both of these terms by K phi. So we land with this expression. Okay, Vt divided by K phi, torque induced Ra divided by K phi whole square. Okay, because we already had a K phi here, and when we divide it by another K phi, so this comes with a square. So this is the speed torque characteristics of a DC machine, which means that how the speed would vary with variations in the torque. And we assume that the flux is kept constant here. Okay. So we are basically, the other things that were constant were due to the construction of the machine, such as the resistance of the armature. And this K part is also related to the construction of the machine. So the three variables that we are playing with is speed, flux, and torque induced. So if we assume that the flux is constant, we are not varying the R adjustable of the field circuit, then if the flux is constant, then the terminal characteristics, speed torque characteristics of the machine will be governed by this equation. And if we compare this equation with this, y is equal to mx plus c. So we see that we are plotting this on the y-axis. So this takes the role of y. And we are plotting torque induced on the x-axis. So this takes the role of x. So this is now the gradient. This is now the gradient, and this is now the y-intercept. So we see that the gradient is coming with a minus sign. So the line should be coming like this, because when the line has negative gradient, and its y-intercept will be equal to Vt over K phi. Okay, so when we plot this, the equation looks like a straight line. Okay, the y-intercept is equal to Kt Vt over K phi, and the gradient is equal to minus Ra over K phi square. Okay, so this gradient is equal to uh, minus Ra over K phi square. Okay, minus Ra over K phi square. So this is the gradient and this is the y-intercept. So as the torque induced of the machine increases, there is a slight fall in the speed of the motor. Okay, so now what does this means is, why would a torque in a machine increase? Okay, always remember this thing, that when a machine is running at equilibrium point, the omega will be equal to constant. Okay, so it will not be experiencing any sort of an angular acceleration. Its angular velocity omega will be constant at equilibrium. What do I mean by equilibrium is, suppose you the motor and you do not attach any mechanical load to it, so the machine will be running at its no load speed, and that no load speed will also be constant. Okay, so it will not be increasing, it will not be decreasing, the no load speed will be constant. Now what happens is you start to put some mechanical load on the machine, and let's say you have set the mechanical load to some value, let's say x. So the x at x mechanical load, the motor will again be under equilibrium, and it will be running at some again constant angular speed, which may be omega x. You change the load and you make the load equal to y, the mechanical load. Again, there will be some changes in the motor, and again it will achieve some equilibrium speed, and this time it will be equal to omega y. So whenever the motor is under loaded or unloaded conditions at equilibrium, if you change the load slightly, it will change, like it may experience an angular acceleration, so that its increase would speed would increase, or it may experience an angular deceleration so that its speed would decrease. But at some equilibrium point, that omega will become constant. So now what you are seeing here is, as the load on the machine is increased, so the torque induced on the machine would also increase, because torque is a function of K and phi and Ia. Okay. So when the torque on the machine is increases, why it would increase? Because if you increase the mechanical load on the machine, then the machine draws more current. Ia is always related to IL, both in the case of separately excited machine and in the shunt DC machine. As Ia increases, the torque will also increase. Okay, so there's a direct proportionality. As Ia increases, the torque increases. So if you are making the machine loaded, so the torque of the machine would increase and its speed would slightly decrease. As you can see in this trend, that when you increase the mechanical load on the machine, the torque definitely has to increase, and the uh, RPM of the machine would decrease. But at any particular load, it will have some sort of a constant RPM at which it would stabilize. Okay. So if the load is fixed to some value L1, so this omega will also stabilize to some value omega L1. So it will initially increase or decrease, but at some stable point, it will become constant. And as the load is increased, for example, the load becomes L2, then it will stabilize at some new velocity omega L2. And it is clear that since the mechanical load L2 is greater than L1, the speed at the increased load L2 is less than the speed at lesser load L1. So when the load is less, the machine has a slightly higher RPM, and when the load is increased, it will have a slightly reduced RPM. But this change is not very drastic. Uh, it is very slow. Okay, it is, so this line is not having a gradient like this. That's the RPM reduces sharply as the load increases, but it reduces very slowly. Okay, then there is something which is called the armature reaction. And armature reaction is due to the fact that the flux of the machine uh, uh, decreases when the load on the machine is increases, and that is known as the armature reaction. And in this course, we are going to neglect all the questions which are talking about armature reaction. Okay. So it is not in the scope of your course. So whenever the machine will talk about armature reaction, we will always ignore it. So we are going to be interested in all the cases where there is no armature reaction. All the cases with armature reaction, we are going to ignore. And when the machine has got something which is known as compensating windings, then we can eliminate the armature reaction. So in this course, we will always be considering machine which will be having compensating windings. And what is compensating windings? These are some special windings, field windings, which offset the effect of the armature reaction. So in this course, we will always be talking about the machines which have compensating windings, and the effect of compensating windings is that it cancels the effect of the armature reaction. And what is the armature reaction? Armature reaction is the weakening of the flux as the load, mechanical load on the motor increases. Okay, so we are going to neglect all the questions in which they talk about armature reaction, and we assume that our motor will be having compensating field windings, so it offsets the effect of the armature reaction. Okay, so let's do this example 8.1 because before we can call it a day today. So in the example 8.1, this is a short example of the book. And the questions of this topic are very, very simple. You just have to apply some logics. And we are going to see one logic, one very, very important logic in this question that you will have to constantly use in this topic of ClO4. So what does this question say? We have a 50 horsepower machine. Okay, so whenever you hear the word horsepower, you know that 1 horsepower is equal to 746 watts. So if you have to convert it into SI units, you must always know this conversion. It's a 250 volt and it's a DC shunt motor. So that means there is only one supply and the field circuit and the armature circuit are attached in parallel to it. That's why it is called a shunt machine, and shunt means parallel. And its rated RPM is 1200 RPM. That means when it is fully loaded, the RPM should equal to 1200 RPM. That means this is the no load RPM. Okay. No, this is not the no load RPM. This is the full load RPM. Okay. Sorry. I correct my error because the rating is for the full loaded condition. Okay. Where is the pen? This is the fully loaded condition when it is working at a mechanical load of 50 horsepower, and always in a motor the ratings are like I told you in the case of synchronous machines, AC machines, all of the data in the question was given in the form of line voltage, and in the case of the generator the rating is given in terms of the electrical load, and in the motor the rating is given in terms of the mechanical load. So this is the full rated mechanical load, and at this full rated mechanical load, the RPM should be 1200 RPM. It shouldn't be less than this. And at no load, it might be higher. Okay, because you know that the load is decreased, the RPM becomes higher. Just the derivation we saw, and it has got compensating windings. So yes, this is the question that we must consider. And whenever you have some question which says that there are no compensating windings and consider the effect of armature reaction, you are going to ignore those questions. They are not part of the course. Okay, and it has some armature resistance. What is the armature resistance? The armature resistance is 0.06 ohm, and its field circuit has a total resistance. That means that R adjustable and RF together is equal to 50 ohm, which produces a no load speed of 1200 RPM. Okay, so now in this question, they have specified that this is not the fully loaded speed, it is a no load speed because of the situation here. So we now change this, and this is the no load speed. Okay, otherwise, if that fact wouldn't have been mentioned, then it would have been no full loaded speed because the conditions in the motor and the generator are at rated loads. But since now it has specified in the question, so now we know that this 1200 is not the fully loaded speed, this is the no load speed because the question has told you so. Okay, so we must read the question. So this is the no load speed of 1200 RPM, and when we are going to put the load of that 50 horsepower, then it would go lower. Okay, so what else does it say? Okay, it says now find the speed of this motor when its input current is 100 amperes. Okay, so we are doing part number A. Part number A, it says the input current, that means IL, is equal to 100 amperes, and I know IEL is equal to the sum of the field current and the armature current because of the Kirchhoff's current law, because IEL is dividing into IF and RA. And which part of this current I can easily find? I know this, and I know that this together is equal to 50 ohms. So IF is very easy to find. IF is simply equal to 250 divided by 50. So IF is equal to 5 amperes. Okay. So I already know IF. And what else can I see? What else can I find? It says that the input current is 100 amperes. So this IEL is 100 amperes and this is 5 amperes. So IA is equal to 95 amperes. Okay, so this we can find easily. And it says find the speed of this motor when its input current is 100 amperes. Okay, so now I know that EA is a function of K times phi times omega m, which is the speed of the rotation. Okay, and it says that when the input current is 100 amperes, what is the speed? Okay, now there's a very important fact that we must always remember. That important fact is that EA is almost equal to the terminal voltage at no load condition. Okay, always remember this. It will be easy to crack all the numericals if you know this fact, that EA is equal to VT at the no load conditions. Okay, so what this means is when you have no mechanical load attached, EA would almost be equal to VT. What does this imply? This implies that this IA would be almost equal to 0.
हाँ मतलब अल्लाह मियाँ की तरफ से बेहतरी होगी.
Please turn off your mic. Please turn off your mics. Please turn off your mics. ठीक है. EA would almost be equal to the terminal voltage at the no load conditions. ठीक है. What this means is when you have attached no mechanical load, the armature induced EMF would be almost equal to VT, and this implies that IA would be equal to 0. Okay, and you can just understand this from the logic of the transformer that I gave you, that when in the transformer you are attaching the primary side to some voltage and in the secondary side you do not attach any load. So what happens is the transformer takes minimum supply from the primary side because it hasn't got any load to give the energy to. So the minimal energy it takes is just for the setting up of the magnetic field and stuff. And as you attach the load on the secondary side, then it starts drawing a lot of current from the primary side. Similar is the case over here in the motor. If you are not making it do any work, if you are not making it do any work in the motor, so it will just take a very minimal amount of supply just to formulate the field. Okay, just to formulate the field part. And when you attach some mechanical load to the machine, then it begins to take IF. Okay, so it will only draw some IF when there is a no loaded condition, and IA will then be close to 0. And when you attach the mechanical load on the machine, then it begins to draw the IA, and this IL would also increase in proportion to that. So always remember this condition, that EA is almost equal to the terminal voltage at the no load conditions, because then the motor will draw negligible current because it has got no work to do over here. Okay, so the only current it will be drawing from the supply will just be to make up for this field, because this circuit is still completed even if there is mechanical load or not. And if you put the mechanical load on it, only then it will begin to draw considerable IA from the supply. Otherwise, this IA will be close to 0. And the consequence of this IA, how it can only be equal to 0, is that this EA is almost equal in polarity and opposing in polarity to 250 volts. Only then IA will reduce to 0. Okay, so always remember this fact.